Good afternoon from Athens. My name is Vasileios. I'm a researcher at the National and Kapodistrian University of Athens in Greece. And today with me is there's Jade, Monroe from the National Union of Students from the United Kingdom. I think, Jade, you can begin with the introduction.
Perfect. Thanks, Vasileios. Hi, everyone. Yeah, here we are today to talk about energy poverty and the hidden impacts with findings, impacts and recommendations from our Saves 2 project. So the Saves 2 project aim was really to reduce energy poverty by ensuring that students adopt energy saving habits and they seek out energy efficient properties when they're moving into the private rented sector. So at the moment, there currently isn't any accurate measure as to actually how many students are in energy poverty. However, through our research, we've really found that students tend to have very high accommodation costs, very low incomes, and they live in poor quality accommodation as well. So there's all the kind of benchmarks for energy poverty that we found through that. And we also know that students are often an underrepresented group. They're not kind of recognized as a group that is vulnerable to energy poverty. And our studies show that students tend to not even realize a lot of the time that they live in energy poor conditions. So through our project, we have conducted energy poverty research. So the aim of this was to really try to understand, evaluate, and then reveal the experiences that students are finding when they're living in the private rented sector, and to try to quantify their possible exposure to energy poverty and then the impact that that has on them, especially in terms of things like their well-being. And through this research, we had over 3,500 students that were surveyed, and this was across 3 years. And we also spoke to 400 landlords in our surveys and 7 EU countries. So we conducted this research in Bulgaria, Cyprus, Greece, Ireland, Lithuania, Romania, and the United Kingdom. And then on top of the surveys, we also spoke to a further 51 students and 29 landlords, and that was through our focus groups. So we could really kind of capture all of the different anecdotal feedback that we're getting from those two groups. So we'll now look at the research findings that we got from those surveys and those focus groups, and I'll hand that over to Vasileios.
We found out that a good share of students have rather low energy efficiency awareness. Convenience and financial factors are at the expense of energy efficiency. And as a result, students look for affordable houses or houses close to their places of study instead of energy efficient houses. The cost of rent, the location and convenience, the condition of accommodation and the size of accommodation are the most important criteria for students when house hunting. We also found that a good share of students have not received an energy performance certificate in most countries, either upon or without request. This was 60% in Ireland, 48% in Romania, 30 to 33% in Cyprus, Greece, Lithuania, and the UK, and 18% in Bulgaria. Most of the landlords participating in the focus groups or interviews said that the students renting their property never asked for the EPC. An EPC was not provided by a number of landlords according to our survey results. 67% and 31% of landlords in Cyprus and Romania, 33% in Lithuania, 20% in Bulgaria, 14% in Ireland, and 8 and 5% in Greece and the UK, correspondingly. In Lithuania, 56% of respondents said that it was not applicable in their country. We also found that a fair share of students put efforts to keep their energy costs down. Some students said that their energy bills were high, even though they were making significant effort to use less energy. In Ireland, this share is 30%, in Greece 29%, in Cyprus 23%, and in Lithuania 15%, and in Bulgaria 6%. Students may turn the heating off even though they did not want to in order to keep costs down. We found out this holds for 45% of the respondents in Ireland, 43% in the UK, 37% in Greece, 29% in Cyprus, and 17% in Bulgaria. In Lithuania, this share is 6%. However, most of the students do not have control over their heating systems. We also found that there are occasions where students were in arrears on their energy bills in the last 12 months. These shares were 27% for Bulgaria, 15% for Greece, 14% for Romania, 10% in Ireland, 9% in Cyprus, 7% in Lithuania, and 7% in the UK. Furthermore, we found out that a fair share of students live in deteriorated dwellings. Damp or mold on walls or ceilings, as well as draughty windows or doors are the most common problems faced by students. In Ireland, 34% of students live in a house with draughty doors or windows, and 30% live in a house with damp or mold on walls. In the UK, 30% have draughty openings, and 38% of students reported damp or mold on walls or ceilings. In Greece, this share is 28 and 29% respectively. In the rest of the countries, at least 15% of students reported the same problems. In all countries, the majority of respondents had approached their landlord about the problems they faced with their accommodation. However, in Lithuania, 29%, and in Ireland, 24%, the percentage of students who did not approach their landlords for relevant issues is important. According to the results of the focus groups, in Lithuania, students fear that their landlords will increase the rent if they approach him or her asking for any improvements. In Ireland, students are afraid of being evicted since there is a large demand for housing, and therefore landlords can easily find new and less demanding tenants. In Greece and Cyprus, we found out that students feel that their landlords do not want to make any investments to improve their property, and they are indifferent to their needs. The financial incentives is the top driver for landlords to improve their properties. Landlords don't easily take actions towards improving poor housing conditions of their property. According to our questionnaire results, none of the respondents from Ireland took any action to improve their rented property due to lack of funding. The same was stated by 13% of respondents in Bulgaria and 8% in Greece. According to our focus groups, landlords from Cyprus, Greece, Lithuania, and the UK reported that they were not aware of any financial incentives or grants. Most of the focus groups participants regard energy efficiency important only as a means of decreasing the running costs of the property. And in addition, the majority of them consider existing or prospective grants and financial incentives as the most significant driver for energy efficiency improvements. The undesirable living conditions that were described previously and the low energy awareness have a severe impact on tenants' well-being. Significant share of students reported feeling miserable due to the poor housing conditions. Those were 44% in Bulgaria, 40% in the UK, 32% in Ireland. Respondents from the UK, Ireland, and Cyprus, 30%, 27%, and 21% respectively, reported feelings of anxiety or depression. A proportion of students reported that they developed new health problems or existing health problems became worse. 17% and 19% respectively in Ireland, 12% and 7% respectively in Lithuania, 5% and 14% in Greece, 15% and 11% in UK. In Bulgaria, the percentage of students that reported reoccurrence of existing health problems is alarmingly high, 33%. Strains have also been placed on social lives of students as a result of poor housing conditions. 21% in Cyprus, 17% in Ireland, 14% in Greece are not at ease at inviting friends or family to their accommodation. Moreover, Notable proportions of students stated a preference in spending as much time as possible away from their homes, ranging from 6% in Lithuania to 20% in Ireland. In our research, we also looked for a possible gender warmth gap. What we found is that women are more likely to live in poor quality accommodation. 26% of female respondents, compared to 24% of male respondents, reported that there was a damp or mold on walls or ceilings in their current accommodation. Moreover, we also found that 29% of female respondents, compared to 20% of male respondents, reported that there were draughty doors or windows in their current accommodation. When it comes into condensation, the study showed the results showed that 26% of female respondents, compared to 21% of male respondents, reported that there were condensation in their current accommodation. Moreover, we found out that women are more likely to adapt to cold accommodation in winter. 75% of female respondents, compared to 49% of male respondents, used blanks or hot bottles to keep warm during the winter. Moreover, 61% of female respondents, compared to 37% of male respondents, wore more than one layer of clothes to bed, while 37% of female respondents, compared to 30% of male respondents, wore outdoor wear in their homes. Women are more likely to take energy-saving actions according to our results. We saw that 44% of female respondents, compared to 34% of male respondents, turned their heating off, even though they would have preferred to have it on. Moreover, 37% of female respondents, compared to 31% of male respondents, turned the heating down, even though they would have preferred it to be warmer. Again, we also found that 26% of female respondents, compared to 22% of male respondents, turned the heating down or off in some rooms, but not others, even though they would have preferred not to. Women are more likely to feel cold. 27% of female respondents, compared to 17% of male respondents, said that they felt much colder than they would have liked. 32% of female respondents, compared to 30% of male respondents, said that they felt a bit colder than they would have liked. Finally, we found out that women are more likely to face health or mental problems due to poor housing conditions. 18% of female respondents, compared to 8% of male respondents, reported that poor housing conditions have made an existing health problem or problems worse. Moreover, 28% of female respondents, compared to 21% of male respondents, said that poor housing conditions made them feel miserable. 23% of female respondents, compared to 19% of male respondents, said that poor housing conditions made them feel anxious or depressed. Interestingly, 17% of male respondents, compared to 14% of female respondents, preferred to spend as much time as possible away from their houses. Those are the research results. And now Jade may jump in the discussion.
Yeah, so through our research, we found some really kind of clear experiences that students were finding, as that we've just demonstrated through Vasileios' area. But also through the project, we also identified other reasons why students really are a vulnerable kind of group of consumers within the energy market. So firstly, it was through experience. So students are often inexperienced energy users. And when they move into the private rented accommodation, that may be the first experience of actually having to kind of manage a household and manage their own bills. So for many, that will leave them with a real kind of experience gap. They may not know their rights as tenants. They may be unsure of things like what their energy is going to be costing them or how to budget for that. And they don't really have experience of some of the practical things such as programming heating or managing bills and arrears, and that the issues of kind of communicating with their landlords and having the confidence to do that, or the confidence to kind of try and rectify problems if they are getting into issues with their energy bills. Some examples here from students also found that they are struggling with their energy supplier. So it can sometimes be sorted through different agencies and they don't really know how they can change that. Another example here is when we signed up, the supplier informed us that it would cost roughly £30 in a UK student, but it actually ended up being triple that. So it can be really difficult for students to know what to budget and then to manage that when it doesn't go how they've expected. Another vulnerability factor is shared households. So again, we know that students are much more likely to be living in shared households and households with more than just themselves. And this can then result in shared responsibilities. So it can be also a difference in the ability to be able to pay as well. So we often find that sometimes students can have disagreements over their heating and cooling levels. So some students may be able to afford to have more heating on and others may not be able to afford to have that. So you may find that one student contributes more to energy bills because they know that they can afford to have their heating on more or the cooling system on more as well. You also come into problems when you're managing bills as a household. So it sometimes is the responsibility falls on one student to be able to pay the bills for the whole household, and then they have to then get their flatmates to pay them back, which can really kind of impact on their relationships within their household and also can leave them quite financially vulnerable. And another reason with the shared households is that there can just be many more inefficiencies when your responsibilities aren't clear. So if you have a large household, it can often be difficult to know who switches off the lights, and things can often get left on. Heating can be left on for a long period of time and nobody can really take responsibility from that. And we found through some of the quotes here, experiences from our students that really back that up. So we have students that feel very stressed out, that all of the bills are in their name and their bank account. And sometimes it's only one person there for 2 or 3 weeks over the breaks, and they still rack up really huge bills that everybody else in the household then has to pay for. Or we've got another student who had the experience of that they only would then got onto heating their household for an hour before they get up and then another 2 hours throughout the day. And that their heating was agreed to be turned off permanently once they got to winter because one of the people within that household couldn't afford the bills and they couldn't kind of decide on that and it was causing too many arguments. So they just decided to turn their heating off entirely. And finally, one of the vulnerability factors is the housing affordability and competition. So we know that students often face really high demand for properties, and with many students looking for housing months and months in advance. This can lead to many students feeling like they have little choice of properties and they can be really rushed into decisions when the competition is high. And bearing in mind, this is often first-time renters as well. So feeling very rushed means that often students don't take the time that they need to really choose a good property for themselves. And we know that their low incomes can result in their choosing of their housing is just the main factor is down to rent. So they choose the most cheapest property possible, and often things like energy efficiency are overlooked and they don't realise that can cost them huge amounts more money for going for an inefficient property. So some examples here was, it's awful, descriptions of properties were always so inaccurate and many properties were way too expensive and that they wasted much money kind of flat hunting and looking for accommodation. And other students here are reporting that they found it very stressful as they were shocked at how early a decision had to be made. And complicating this is that at the moment, student energy poverty is just so difficult to measure. So we know that this leaves students very vulnerable because if they're not measured, they're often not then included within schemes and grants and things that may be on offer to other vulnerable consumers. So at the moment, there's a difficulty in measuring student energy poverty because despite the research showing that many students are vulnerable, they do have those high costs and low quality accommodation. The complicating factors are that there's rarely kind of any national assistance schemes that can help and support them. And they're a very transient population. So we know that they only live in properties for a short period of time. So to kind of track them and then include them in the assistance schemes can be very difficult. And then the differences of income within households too. So you may have a student that experiences extreme kind of financial difficulties and in one property, whereas the person in the room next to them may not be experiencing the same. So there can be very different experiences within the household. And all of these things kind of then relate to the fact that students are just often not considered, they're often not helped with energy poverty. And it's an area where they just kind of put up with it, and then they can be led to be very vulnerable within that situation. So we have some recommendations. And firstly, throughout the project, our main kind of recommendation is that you need to make sure that students know that they are experiencing energy poverty, and then to help and support them to get the right advice and to put measures in place so that they can change behaviours and get some support. But we also have recommendations for a few kind of key groups as well. So firstly, landlords. And the main area for landlords is that they need to improve their building efficiencies. And we saw through the research that many landlords are not aware of any kind of national incentive schemes to help them improve their buildings with retrofits and renovations. So for us, firstly, it's about trying to make sure landlords are really aware of the support that's out there for them to improve their buildings. We'd also like landlords to be participating in landlord accreditation schemes where that's applicable. And then again, through the research, we found that landlords were not providing that EPC information or energy efficient information to their tenants. So we would really like landlords to be openly and in advance being able to provide students with that information so they can really make informed decisions when they're taking their rental properties. And then on a side note, we would love to be able to support landlords to be able to provide more information when students move in. So often students will not have any information on how to control their heating, when to turn things off, how things work. And that can, again, just really like lengthen out that knowledge gap for a student when they move into accommodation. Next up, we would have recommendations for our policymakers or our governments. So firstly, it's the deployment of that financial help and incentives to try and get the property stock improved for students. And we would also really like our governments or our policymakers to try to be either incentivizing or enforcing some basic kind of minimum energy efficient standards within the private rented sector. We would like our policymakers to be including students as a vulnerable group in energy poverty so that they are not that missed group of consumers that often are not accounted for. And we would like them to have some strategies to support energy efficient products, emerging technologies such as smart metering, to make sure that properties are including these good quality technologies. Additional recommendations would be for energy companies. So we also feel that they have a place to play within this. So we would love to see them being able to provide low-cost student tariffs and recognizing the market advantage of offering really good kind of energy to students as kind of first-time consumers. And having those trained customer advisors to adequately support our vulnerable consumers so that they get really good advice that's tailored to them as a vulnerable consumer. And lastly, our recommendations would be for universities and unions, which is to operate firstly an approved landlord scheme so they can really keep on track with what their landlords are doing, that renting out properties to their students, and then making sure that that advice is provided as well. And we know that many universities and unions are looking to do things or have things in place as well. And we really enjoy kind of supporting our universities and unions to be strengthening that support and advice over the project as well. So as a final remark, we can see through our research that it really shows that many students, and not equally, so in particular, our research showed that women as well feel uncomfortably cold, they struggle to pay their energy bills, and they experience negative health impacts as a result of their accommodation. We also know that students are really vulnerable due to their low income, their poor quality housing, and factors such as their lack of experience, their shared housing, and the demand that the housing has as well. We know that many organisations have a role to play in ensuring that students are not experiencing energy poverty and the impacts that this has on the health, the well-being, and their attainment. We've got some references there if you wanted to find out more about our research.